don't know how to keep you, don't know how to keep you, don't know how to keep you, how to keep you.
Hello everyone, PJ here from Harcourts Astute, and I've got here my brother as well as the Managing Director of Profectus Financial Partners here in Paddington. Thanks for joining us, Pedram.
Pleasure.
Thank you. Now, Pedram, could you tell us a bit about what Profectus does and how they've been so successful?
A boutique self-licensed financial advisory practice based in Paddington. And yeah, we're a multifaceted firm that, we do quite a bit of work in the accounting space, in the superannuation space, in the investment space, cash flow and whatnot. So we are an all-encompassing type business. I think that's probably held us in pretty good stead. It is like a one-stop shop type arrangement where we have, a relatively large team that can look after a lot of your financial needs.
Oh, great. Fantastic. Look, Pedram, thanks for taking your time today, because one thing I really want to go over, I guess, which is quite a big topic that I'm hearing a lot from a lot of savvy buyers, is purchasing in your super fund and can you, can't you, how not.
Yeah.
Obviously a lot of things to keep in mind. So could you tell us a bit more about how that works and what you can and can't do?
Yeah, look, purchasing in super it can be a very, very good thing. It's not as easy as it was a certain number of years ago, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. Everyone was doing it, and it was perhaps being done a lot more frequently than it is now, but also done perhaps incorrectly as well. Too many times it's always been, I want this property, where can I buy it? Okay, super's the only place that I can afford it right now, let's do it. Whereas perhaps it's not the best strategy. The ATO are also cracking down on super funds investment strategies, so they don't like the concept of a super fund being solely invested, 99% of its assets being invested in one piece of real estate. So there has to be a very, very good investment strategy, because at the end of the day, superannuation in its true sense is to provide you with retirement benefits. And so they don't like the scenario where people are about to retire and they've only got perhaps one piece of real estate, even though it may be unencumbered. One piece of real estate, it doesn't provide the liquidity and the flexibility one would need, because retirement is unpredictable. Sometimes you'll need lump sum monies out of your super fund, and you can't exactly do that if all your assets are in just one piece of real estate. So there are ways to do it. It's certainly a good idea. It actually makes perfect sense if you're a business owner to buy, if you do have a premises, whether it be an industrial or a commercial or an office space. It makes wonderful sense doing that, as long as it's structured correctly, and to become your own landlord. There are compliance things you have to satisfy, but it makes great sense. But even outside of that, if it's structured well, if the cash flows are designed so that if there is a loan associated with it, pay it off quickly and get on to buying other assets, that would be the idea behind it. But yeah, it's certainly doable, and it can certainly be done very well, because the tax rate in super is incredibly low compared to what it is outside of super. So it can be extremely beneficial. It just has to be structured well.
You mentioned some things about compliance there. Now, can you give us some of those things that I guess are important to note? Because if I'm not wrong, purchasing a home that you live in is not something that, is that right?
That is an absolute no-no. You cannot get a personal gain out of a residential property at all. Business property is different. So business real property, as long as you're satisfying some requirements, like making sure you're paying market rent, making sure that your rent is always up to date, and the lease agreements are always up to date, and a few other compliance requirements. But so yes, there are those compliance requirements. But when it comes to a residential place, it is designed to be an investment and an investment only. Under no circumstances are you allowed to, or anyone within your circle, allowed to live in it regardless of what rent you may or may not pay. So that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a very, very big thing. No personal benefit can be obtained from residential property inside your super fund.
That's a really good point. And now, just to also go over what you said about structure. Now, I guess a big part of property buying, whether it is your super or not, is a big factor is, I guess, the financial side of things and how to structure the mortgage maybe, or structure the company that you buy in, or all those bits and pieces. Is there any tips you can give us on what's things to look out for when, I guess, doing the mortgage or even setting up the company that purchases it?
Correct. Well, the first thing I would say, being an advisor, would be to go and seek advice. Yeah. But it's more designed around the cash flow. Like if I speak to a lot of my clients, and sometimes I actually say to my clients, look, as much as I appreciate the go-get attitude about wanting to buy real estate in super, it's actually not a good idea for some people. But some of the things that I look out for is the ability to repay quickly, even though a bank may give you, and bank lending for super fund properties is getting harder these days. It used to be quite easy 5-6 years ago. But bank funding might give you a 20 to 25, sometimes even a 30-year loan for a super fund property. So if you're, as an example, 40 years old and you're getting a 30-year loan to pay off a $600,000-$700,000 piece of real estate, that means you're going to be 70 before this thing is paid off. If you don't have the ability or the strategy in place to make sure that this is paid off quite a bit sooner than that, so that you can spend some time acquiring other assets, going back to my point earlier about only having one piece of real estate being represented as your super fund. If you don't have the means to be able to accelerate repayments and debt reduction, to be able to buy some more liquid assets, things like shares, things like maybe a very, very small portion of business interests, and obviously cash, because in retirement, these pension payments that need to come out of super, you can't pay property out of super, you have to pay cash out of super. So having other assets would be the best way. So I guess that's a long answer to your question. The short answer would be the ability to accelerate, a significant acceleration of the repayments and debt reduction. That would be a very big tick as far as I'm concerned when it comes to me providing advice to my clients. Plus there are others, but that's a very big one.
Yeah, got you. Look, that's a very good point. And we often worry about the purchase rather than how we're going to service it. So one thing to really keep in mind is make sure you do speak to a professional, which I'll leave Pedram's details at the end of this video. But look, just to get your ducks in a row and get all your T's crossed and I's dotted, and make sure you do this